everybody. Welcome to Moment of Clarity. I missed you. I missed you guys. How you doing out there? Good to see you again. As many of you know, I took a bit of a break from the live streams. The Redacted Tonight still came out though last week. So if you haven't watched that, fucking get on it. And but yeah, I'm back. Better than ever. I had an unbiased, independent group of scientists analyze me, and they came to the unanimous decision that I'm better than ever. Yeah, I mean, I know I'm trying to be humble about it, but you know, when you get, it was like 35, 37 scientists together, and yeah, they all said better than ever. So. There you go. I'm not, I don't have a dog in the race. I'm just saying that's what they said. Just letting you know that's what they said. Got a lot of great stuff for you on this little Moment of Clarity episode. It accidentally ended up in becoming the story of how two of the best known progressive independent media outlets have been captured and destroyed. So that's exciting. But beyond that, or before that, actually, I want to give you some good news, which is pretty fucking cool. By the way, please take a minute to share this, let people know, hit the thumbs up, and all that good stuff. So here is the good news before we get into the capture of progressive media. This is being reported in many outlets. This is the Wall Street Journal, garbage outlet. Never read it, but that's where I went to for this headline. Keystone XL oil project has been abandoned by the developer. Activists, I'm sure this part is not what the Wall Street Journal has said, but activists won this. Activists won this battle. The decision ends a years-long effort to pipe more Canadian crude to the U.S. And I assume Wall Street Journal's also not letting you know in this article that this would spell the death knell for humanity if everything in the Canadian tar sands were exploited, were actually used and pumped into the air. Then climate change would go beyond all possible realm of conceivably having a planet to continue living on. So, yeah, while the Wall Street Journal, I'm sure, is, lamenting this, says, oh, well, they had to abandon this development of this pipeline across the United States. It actually is a good thing for our survival. So if you like survival, if you're a fan of survival, I understand some people maybe not. Maybe you've always wanted to commit suicide and you just never really got up to it until you're looking for kind of a backdoor suicide deal. And so you're hoping survival will end. And for those of you, this is a very sad day because the Keystone XL pipeline has been abandoned. And this comes after the Biden administration, refused to give them the permits that they needed to continue the Keystone XL. But I also would not give Biden credit for this because he did that because of the pressure that was created by activists, that was created by people on the ground demanding this stop, demanding fossil fuel stop, fighting, putting their bodies on the line. And no, Keith, I'm not sniffing any cocaine. I just talk like this. So I'm excited about these things, okay? Is that okay? Is that okay, Keith? Is that all right with you? Is it? If that is your real name. So... yeah, but don't give Biden any credit for fucking this. This has to do with activists putting their bodies on the line, locking themselves to pipelines, locking themselves to construction equipment, making it difficult, fighting in the courts as well. So many lawyers doing pro bono shit to stop and at least slow this steady march of destroying our planet. And basically, they made it so that this wasn't financially feasible for, Enbridge and the others that are involved in this Keystone XL. I don't know why these comments are attracting my attention today more than normal, but Grayford, I don't know why you're saying I'm 5 feet tall. Okay. I'm 5'10.5". I could say 5'11". You wouldn't even fucking know. You would know that it's 5'10.5". Okay. Stop with the comment. According to you guys, I'm a cocaine-fueled 5-footer. That is not true. I snort nothing but Godiva chocolates. No, actually, I don't eat those either. Aren't those made with slave labor? I actually eat nothing that isn't made with slave labor. So Godiva would, if I were into that kind of thing, would be good for me. But anyway, I was trying to talk about something real. God damn it! This had to do with activists fucking up this pipeline, getting in the way, putting their bodies on the line. That's why this became financially not useful any longer to this company, and why Biden and his administration decided to not give the required permits and required other things, whatever the fuck, licenses. I don't know, but it had to do with Biden seeing the writing on the wall that this was becoming untenable. And by the way, this is not to act like, oh, fossil fuels are done. Oh, Keystone Pipeline's not happening. So fossil fuels gave up. They've given up. They're not going to exploit fossil fuels anymore. That's bullshit. Obviously, they're going to use everything in their ability to go around, to go in between, to go under, to go in the back door without consent, in every way they can to continue to burn fossil fuels. So the oil that would have been exploited through the Keystone XL, they're going to try and still get exported and get it refined and all that shit by other means. You got bomb trains, you got other pipelines, et cetera, et cetera. So they're going to keep doing that. And so people got to keep fighting to stop these things. And we're getting closer. But so that's the good news. I just wanted to throw out there before we get into the capture of independent progressive outlets. Now, one of them, which I guess I'll start with this. Both of these stories, one of them comes from Aaron Mate, one of them is about Aaron Mate, but that's by accident. Aaron, great journalist. As you saw from my last episode before I took my break, and as you've seen, because it's going viral everywhere, is that the young Turk, and I'm not going to go through all the details again, the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur and Annika Kasparian decided to flip out against Aaron Mate, and Anna's like, yeah, fuck you, Aaron Mate, fuck you, and claim that he's funded by dictators and shit like that, even though he's not. And Aaron, so I like I said, I went into all the details and how fucking pathetic it is, and how the Young Turks have just become MSNBC, and how pathetic that is. I went into most of that last time, but Aaron Mate put out a longer. This is just the other day, even though this has been brewing for 2 weeks. He put out a longer article on kind of detailing some of the bullshit around this attack against him by the Young Turks. Basically, they're upset that he's a real journalist and they're not. And anyway, I thought I'd read a little bit of Aaron's explanation as to why he sees why they took this moment to do this, why they're so furious at Aaron Mate, who's a friend of mine and the nicest guy in the world and does great journalism. And, I have nothing bad to say about him. Yet the Young Turks have decided to go fucking balls to the wall furious against Aaron Mate, because that's where you should be directing it. One of the few journalists actually doing real shit. Anyway, I thought I'd read a bit of what Aaron had to say about that, which he just published the other day, I think yesterday or maybe even today. So he said, in 2017, DNC mega donor and Hollywood mogul Jeffrey Katzenberg led a round of investments in TYT worth $20 million. Thus, after this perpetually progressive outlet took boatloads of cash, purportedly, not perpetually, purportedly progressive outlet took boatloads of money from the neoliberal Democratic Party elite, it is also now parroting their favorite McCarthyite smear tactic. Dissenters and political foes must be paid by the Russians. In my guesses as to where Cenk Uygur is coming from, inwardly uncomfortable with the awkward position he's put himself in, maintaining his image as a Bernie Sanders progressive while wrapping himself in the DNC cozy quilt, he has to place the blame somewhere else. A journalist that eschews an establishment security blanket and thus has the liberty to stay true to principles is as good a target as any. So, yeah, he's talking about, Cenk probably has some guilt, probably feels a little shitty about the fact that he is supposed to be critical of the DNC. He made his kind of fame and celebrity and success based on being critical of the DNC, being critical of Democrats from the left. And now it's kind of his job, as long as he was willing to take the $20 million to defend the DNC elite. This doesn't mean they don't criticize him, but it means on many issues, they are, at the end of the day, going to put forward the same line as the DNC, as our government propaganda. The Young Turks do this on Syria, right? They do it on Russiagate, largely believing in going with Russiagate. And some of the, one of the reasons they split with Jimmy Dore was because Jimmy is rightly and correctly, and we've all been proven right to be questioning of the Russiagate narrative that has been completely and utterly debunked. More on that later. So the Young Turks have basically gone in for Russiagate. Now they themselves are pointing to excellent journalists and saying, Russian. So they're doing MSNBC's job, right? That's Rachel Maddow's job. So they are fully now just about MSNBC. And that $20 million decided that, that you can't be funded by the DNC elite and not serve their purposes. One of the earlier times that because this was back, I think this was back in the 2016 election. One of the times where it became clear to me where the Young Turks and Cenk stood was when he did an interview with Bernie Sanders. And I think it was their first interview since Bernie had really taken off as this, could become president kind of level. And he had him on, and obviously that's their big get, right? Bernie Sanders is all over every headline. He's massive, and this is their big thing. And they've largely supported him up to that point. But in that interview, the big takeaway from that interview was Cenk saying to Bernie Sanders, when will be, the time that you're ready to endorse Hillary Clinton? And this is way before Bernie Sanders did that. This is way before Bernie Sanders dropped out. And by making that one of the key questions, Cenk knew what he was doing. He was putting it in everybody's mind that Bernie was done, that Bernie will lose. So even before Bernie dropped out or anything, Cenk was already laying the groundwork for. I mean, you're gonna drop out, right? And you're gonna give it to the Democratic elite, right? 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 You gotta do that, right? And it is a way of managing perception, of manipulating people, of making those who at that time were fighting for Bernie Sanders already get the seed in their head. Oh, this is just about over. He's gonna lose. And, that I assume that if you're going to ask that question and put that out there and make that kind of the big question that gets hyped up all over your outlets, you're serving the purpose of Hillary Clinton, right? But anyway, just a little more from Aaron Mate. TYT's meltdown, immature though it wasn't just a case of two individuals going off-hinge to slander a perceived foe. Uygur and Kasparian's rank McCarthyism falls squarely in line with the chauvinist, militaristic, Russiagate-driven worldview that has virally laid waste to intellects throughout left liberal media in recent years. Driving this ideological plague has been an elaborate propaganda campaign aimed at Western audiences, with the specific goal of demonizing the two states invoked in the TYT rant. He's talking about the one against him. In the TYT rant, Russia and Syria. Because in Cenk and Anna's rant against Aaron Mate, other than "fuck you, Aaron Mate," other than that, they claimed that he was an apologist for Assad and he's defending a dictator for using chemical weapons on children, and it's disgusting. And so that was the other stuff they said, when, of course, Aaron Mate has done a great job of revealing the fraud that was the so-called chemical attack in Duma, Syria. Because honestly, unless you're a fucking idiot, you know that Assad was not, days before the U.S. was pulling out, going to use a chemical weapon in order to ensure the U.S. stay in his country. There's a lot of horrible things he might do. That ain't one of them. So if you're not a fucking idiot, like Cenk and Anna apparently are, you wouldn't even believe that makes any sense. And so Aaron and then 4 OPCW whistleblowers have come forward to reveal all of that. Aaron's not the only journalist. Like I've said, there's others that have done good work on it. Seymour Hersh, John Pilger, very, very well-known journalists. Anyway, back to this for a second. Almost done. Following the same playbook used for Iraq, Libya, and any other target of U.S. hegemony, this campaign reduces entire states and their populations to a cartoonish portrayal of their leaders, while justifying antipathy or outright aggression against them with cynical appeals to human rights and democracy. What sets the Russia and Syria cases apart is the extent to which this disinformation effort has succeeded in winning over the progressive wing of its target demographic. And so, he's talking about how people who even claim to be progressives and claim to be adversarial to our American empire, to the military-industrial complex, to the endless bombing and endless destruction of the world that goes on by our government, these so-called progressives who claim to be against that stuff, they too have been brought in, many of them, obviously not all of them, not you guys, but many of them have been brought in to these ridiculous propaganda campaigns about chemical weapons in Syria. Meanwhile, the U.S. is funding and arming al-Qaeda offshoots to fight Syria, or about Russiagate, which has completely collapsed. And of course, I've gone through that a million times, and we'll have a little more about that in a minute when I get to the stuff on the Intercept. But the reason I wanted to add this in here, and this put a little more flesh on the bone, as they say, from my analysis of this last episode. But also this shows how TYT, and I think I forgot the guy's name, but now we know Katzenberg. I remembered it once I read it, which I guess doesn't count as remembering it. That just counts as reading it. But anyway, TYT has been captured, is no longer adversarial to the DNC establishment. So I don't understand why people would watch it at that point. Like, at that point, why not just go watch CNN? Why would you take the time to be a member of TYT or watch TYT and be like, hey, I'm getting the real dirt, I'm getting the real truth? If you know that they are just this thing designed to prop up the DNC elite, DNC establishment, I should say. At the end of the day, I'm not saying that they don't. It doesn't mean that everything they ever say is a lie. It means that when it comes to Syria, when it comes to Russiagate, when it comes to supporting Hillary Clinton, when it comes to supporting Joe Biden in the election, all of those things they'll ultimately do. They may be critical of Joe Biden here and there, but when it push comes to shove and it's time to go vote, guess who they're standing behind? Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton. So anyway, I don't know why you would watch them if you can just flip on MSNBC and get the same garbage. It doesn't really make sense to me. But okay, that was Aaron Mate talking about their attack on him. Now, by coincidence, but of course it helps that I read Aaron Mate's stuff, I also And also, I had heard that Betsy Reed, the editor-in-chief of The Intercept, did an interview. And I heard she did an interview, but here's the thing. I don't want to fucking sit through a whole interview with the goddamn editor-in-chief of The Intercept. And The Intercept has done some good work over the years, here and there, right? Blue Leaks is a good example, right? Where they covered the leaks that came out about police across the country. And so they do some good work here and there. And Glenn Greenwald particularly did years of good work and, co-founded The Intercept and then left because they were trying to censor him. So The Intercept has moved more and more to this kind of center MSNBC garbage perspective. One of the big things that put them there, that kind of put them really far in that realm, was Russiagate. And Glenn Greenwald was doing a great job of tearing apart Russiagate. Meanwhile, people like Jim Risen, also at The Intercept, were doing an awful job of spitting out Russiagate garbage. And in fact, they actually, while Glenn Greenwald was still there, had a debate between James Risen, who formerly with the New York Times, then with The Intercept, and Glenn Greenwald. Two people at The Intercept debated each other on Russiagate. And Greenwald, of course, mopped the floor with him. But it doesn't really matter because here's the thing. They know that despite that debate, despite the fact that James Risen didn't have shit to say, his articles and the other articles that are supporting Russiagate from The Intercept will continue to go out, and they'll continue to get to tons of people, and they'll continue to take people who are normally adversarial to the American empire line, to the garbage that we are fed by our propaganda state. It takes people who believed in The Intercept, and it says, hey, here's some Russiagate for you. And a lot of people were like, well, it's coming from The Intercept, so it must be true, right? They did the Snowden archives, right? They must be good, which they, by the way, only covered 5% of and have managed to capture and burn the other 95%. So there's another problem. What the fuck happened to the other 95% of the Snowden archives? Anyway, so here's a clip from the editor-in-chief. Like I said, in case you didn't know this already, Glenn Greenwald left The Intercept months ago after they tried to censor him at the last election because he wanted to report on the truth about Hunter Biden, which was true. And Hunter Biden, his connection, his corruption in the Ukraine, China, etc. It's our government standard corruption, but it is corruption. So why shouldn't Glenn Greenwald be allowed to write about it? Anyway, this is the editor-in-chief of The Intercept. She did an interview, and she said something really interesting, which Aaron Mate has tweeted about. So it's just an audio clip. So this is her voice, Betsy Reed's voice. It's a 45-second clip.
And this idea of like a conspiracy, which, Mueller defined narrowly and set a very high bar for as a tacit or express agreement with the Russians. I really think what the picture you get reading the report is that the Trump campaign was not sufficiently competent to execute an agreement like that. Like it's just complete mess. But there are a zillion connections with the Russians and attempts to kind of, work together in some loose way. So I do think that I think that there's plenty of evidence of this kind of soft, loose type of collusion in the report, but just not that, high level of conspiracy. And then, of course, and this idea of like
that was the end of it. I didn't cut her off. That's the end of the clip. Yes, a zillion examples of conspiracy. And as Aaron Mate says in his tweet, The Intercept's editor-in-chief believes that the Mueller report uncovered, quote, plenty of evidence of this kind of soft, loose type of collusion between Trump and Russia. That tells you all you need to know. And he's right. It does tell you all you need to know about the fucking Intercept. She's fucking out of her mind. The Mueller report, did you read it? Did you look at it? The Mueller report had nothing on collusion with Russia. Nothing. The Mueller report tried ultimately to indict a bunch of people at a clickbait farm in St. Petersburg who put up posts that didn't clearly push people to vote one way or the other. And almost all of them, like 56%, were after the fucking election. And the ones that were before the election, it was like they spent $3 on each one or something. It was a fucking pinprick. And the fact that Mueller had to indict those people shows you that he didn't have fucking anything. That was the best he could do, was a clickbait farm in St. Petersburg. That was all he could find. That was it. That was the whole kit and caboodle. And ultimately, they dropped those indictments quietly on a Friday, months later, when you weren't paying attention. They dropped those indictments because they didn't even have anything they could prove on these people working at this clickbait farm. Half of the people they indicted at the clickbait farm weren't even at the clickbait farm in 2014 when this was supposedly going. I mean, they had left the clickbait farm in 2014, meaning 2 years before the goddamn election. That's how insane it was. So anybody with half a mind knows that the Mueller report did not show collusion. The most that you could conceivably think the Mueller report showed was that Paul Manafort, a corrupt moron, who there's no evidence Trump ever talked to him about anything Russia-related. Paul Manafort shared publicly available polling data with a translator named Konstantin Kalimnik that they have not proven had any connection to the Russian government. That's the most you could prove. That's if you really wanted to prove something. And I talked more about that like a couple episodes ago on Moment of Clarity. Again, Aaron Mate's work tearing all that apart. But so even if you wanted to believe that Manafort thing, even if you're like, no, my head is firmly up my ass and I'm believing the Manafort thing. Manafort met with that translator, and by giving him publicly available polling data, it just changed everything. Even if you were that dumb, even if you ate loads of paint chips as a kid, still, that doesn't mean the Mueller report showed loads of collusion. So what the fuck is she talking about? She's out of her goddamn mind. And it's not by accident that this woman, and I don't know her background, but this woman is at the head of The Intercept. The Intercept, which is funded and owned by an oligarch, also serves a purpose. It seemed to be adversarial. Yet, we're now seeing where it really stands. That they wouldn't even let Glenn Greenwald, the co-founder, write about Hunter Biden. So at the end of the day, you see what The Intercept is, or at least has become. Maybe there was a time when that wasn't the case. Maybe there was a time in the early days of The Intercept when they were freer. And, you know, especially with Glenn Greenwald being the main voice there, they were allowed to do much better shit. But now we see what they are. And luckily, she did this interview, and maybe she's done others, revealing what they are. So we see that they, again, are no different than MSNBC. They are giving in to this ridiculous McCarthyite garbage that, you know, puts us on, pushes us towards nuclear war in a world where we desperately need cooperation, or we're all going to fucking die soon from environmental collapse. It really is incredible. Oh, and I wanted to show you also Ben Norton's response. Ben Norton tweeted, "Billionaire oligarch owned The Intercept has in reality..." Oh, well, actually, should have read this first. So here's Max Blumenthal talking about The Intercept's latest fundraising appeal, which says in it, quote, "It has been virtually alone," meaning The Intercept, has been virtually alone in tracing how Biden's long record of advancing imperial wars has continued into the early months of his administration. The Intercept is claiming they've been alone in doing that. And Max Blumenthal rightly says this is an offensive lie. And then he also throws in that they suppressed coverage of Hunter Biden in the Ukraine. But that's not all. They've also, put forward these Russiagate lies, which are designed to create imperial wars. So while the Intercept acts like they're, we're the only one talking about Biden's imperial wars, first of all, no, you're not. All right. I'm here. Okay. I'm here. And also there's plenty of other great people, such as The Gray Zone, Mint Press, Aaron Mate, Jimmy Dore. There's plenty of great people doing this work. Ron Placone, Graham Elwood, Krish Mohan, mainly comedians. It's mainly just comedians. But anyway, so Intercept said that in their latest fundraising appeal. Ben Norton said, billionaire oligarch owned The Intercept has in reality been virtually alone in running a cynical scam that markets itself as adversarial while erasing actual anti-imperialist independent media outlets and pushing Washington's propaganda line against Syria, Nicaragua, Iran, etc. And see, that's the key. They push the imperial war line on so many issues. And then in order to keep their street cred, in order to make people think that they are some kind of adversarial outlet, they also do some reporting on Biden's imperial wars. So Jeremy Scahill just did a long, multi-articled series about Biden's imperial history and how Biden has been for war, pro-war through most of his career. But you can put out that to keep your street cred and then spin around and still put forward the propaganda on Syria, Nicaragua, Iran, Russia. And so it's actually useful for them to have those articles that try and hold on to their street cred, try and hold on to the idea that they are this adversarial outlet, when we also know that they have been responsible more than any other outlet for exposing whistleblowers. They've done it to, it's either 2 or 3 separate people have been prosecuted based on their negligence. If it's negligence, it could be intentional, but whatever it is, it's fucking pathetic. They have gotten multiple people locked up for many, many years, accidentally. So there you have it. That's what The Intercept is now, putting forward these, garbage ideas about Russiagate, garbage. Honestly, does anyone, even people that watch mainstream media, do they honestly believe that there was some kind of collusion proven between Donald Trump is a fucking awful human piece of parasitic fecal sludge. He is the worst. And yet, he didn't fucking collude with Russia to win the election. He won the election because he won the election in 2016. He won the election. He lost his last election. He won the election because Hillary Clinton was a piece of trash candidate that everyone knew was just more of the same imperial war, Wall Street running wild, whereas some were fooled into thinking Trump was different, and he's not. But he didn't collude with Russia. And honestly, if you wanted to put forward look, this country rigged the election, your best bet would be Britain, the UK, because that's where Cambridge Analytica was housed. And they actually bragged until they went bankrupt or whatever, were forced to break up. They actually bragged about manipulating U.S. elections. She did a TED Talk. The head of Cambridge Analytica at the time did a TED Talk and saying that they'd been involved in, I think, 41 U.S. elections and they'd won 40 of them. So she's bragging in TED Talks that this British company, which also was working with Steve Bannon and funded by Robert Mercer, they bragged about rigging American elections. And yet that's not good for U.S. propaganda, right? That doesn't. Ultimately, they had to coverage Cambridge Analytica because it just became a story they couldn't ignore anymore. It was too big. But they've still forgotten it, right? They've kept talking about Russiagate and they've given up talking about Cambridge Analytica because one of those doesn't help U.S. propaganda. The one about Russia helps U.S. propaganda. So let's keep harping on that. Anyway, it's just I'm gonna play that clip again. I'm gonna play that clip of fucking Betsy Reed at the Intercept saying that the Mueller report showed tons of collusion. Because I think we need to hear this phenomenal, pathetic clip one more time. Just one more time.
And this idea of like a conspiracy, which, Mueller defined narrowly and set a very high bar for as a tacit or express agreement with the Russians. I really think what the picture you get reading the report is that the Trump campaign was not sufficiently competent to execute an agreement like that. Like it's just complete mess. But there are a zillion connections with the Russians and attempts to kind of, work together in some loose way. So I think that there's plenty of evidence of a kind of soft, loose type of collusion in the report, but just not that, high level of conspiracy. And then, of course,
I think there's plenty of evidence of soft collusion. I just can't give you any examples or do any reporting on it or reveal any of it because I don't actually have any examples of it. But I feel it's more of an in here kind of feeling that there was just lots of soft level collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign. It's not a look, here it is kind of thing. It's just a feeling that I get. It kind of starts in the fingers and then it goes up and then the tips of the ears. I'm like, oh, Russian collusion, tips of the ears, and then goes down, and then it's just right in my heart. I feel Russian collusion there, and also it makes me a little gassy from the collusion. I know. When I start ripping the couch cushions apart, that's when I know someone's colluding with Russia. But it's not. But like I said, it's not a thing you really show people. It's more of you just kind of feel it and you smell it. Of course, you smell it. But I feel that the Mueller report showed lots of soft level collusion. I feel it. I can't read you a sentence from the report that says that. At least not with indictments they had to drop because they didn't have any evidence. So I don't have things to tell you about that are collusion, but I just feel it. Just feel it. There was some more. You're going to smell that one in a minute. You're going to smell that collusion any second now. That's going to hit you. You're going to be like, wow, she was right. She was right. Oh my God. These pieces of shit. It's too much. They're too awful. These pieces of shit. I can't even. I mean, and honestly, like, how many sources haven't been captured? I think there's like 2, maybe. Like, honestly, that's just, it feels. Here's the thing. It feels like it was an active campaign by the ruling elite. Our ruling elite in this country started to lose control. They had a full 100% lock on all the propaganda, all the control, all the way up until about like 2010. Not even a risk to all of their propaganda, American bullshit, endless war, Wall Street going nuts, fucking just a lock. There wasn't even a question about it. The only thing that even gave them a bump in the road before 2010 was when an oil titan, Ross Perot, got in the race, and that caused some of the numbers to jiggle around. That was the only thing they risked, was that a oil billionaire might put his foot in the ring. So they just had a lock on all this shit. And around 2010, it all ran wild. The door fucking flung open. WikiLeaks popped up. People were making YouTube videos revealing things that the mainstream media would never talk about. It just all fucking opened up. And before you know it, yeah, Bernie Sanders nearly winning the presidency despite all of their rigging efforts. He nearly beat their rigging efforts even with superdelegates. He nearly beat fucking 15 different kinds. I'm talking 2016, 15 different kinds of rigging. He still nearly got past it. And so you have WikiLeaks, you have the Snowden archives, you have Occupy. It all fucking burst forth. And you have all these like outlets coming forward that weren't approved by the mainstream media, like the Young Turks earlier days, like the Intercept. And they had to find a way to shut it down. And so it took some time, but they captured captured the Intercept. It's tough to say when exactly you'd say the Intercept was just kind of done, but basically captured the Intercept, captured the Young Turks. Not that maybe it didn't even take much. I don't know. Maybe they were like, here's a check, and the Young Turks were like, all right. And then their next job was to shut down kind of YouTube, like a lot of people watching YouTube. So obviously you can still go and watch YouTube. You can still watch my videos. Those of you watching this right now realize I'm still out there, right? So some of you are saying, you're not shut down, right? You're still out there. But here's the thing. I'm getting a tiny fraction of the number of viewers. And it's not because I changed what it is I'm saying. It's not because what I've been saying is no longer of value or no longer useful or no longer entertaining or whatever you want to fucking say. And all of that, none of that's changed. What's changed mainly, although there's some ins and outs of it, but what's changed is that YouTube used to have an algorithm that said, oh, you like this video? Here's more of them. If you stumble across a redacted night and you go, I kind of like this video, and you give it a thumbs up. And then YouTube used to go, oh, you liked that. Here's more redacted tonight because you told us you liked it. You told us you were learning something. Here's more of that. Now they do the reverse. You go to redacted tonight and they go, oh, looks like you've stumbled across a scary part of the internet. That's what, you silly fella. Why don't you, next we're going to automatically play a John Oliver video. Why don't you head on? Why don't you waddle your little behind back over to John Oliver, and then maybe we'll throw you on to Jimmy Kimmel, and we'll get you back to something on MSNBC. We'll get you back there, maybe a Fox News, maybe a CNN. We'll get you back to one of those happy little areas of the internet, because you seem to have stumbled across something that tells you that we're lying to you, and that is a problem. And this was done on, has been done on all social media. It's been done on Facebook. It's been done on largely on Twitter. Twitter's a little more free, but not that much. That's why you need alternatives like Panquake and things. But it ain't easy to build alternatives to the largest outlets online. Facebook is still used by billions upon billions of people. So it's like a secondary internet. It's so big. And so you can't just be like, I'm opening a web page and then that'll do the trick. So it seems like it was coordinated, but yeah. Parasocialite is a good point. You like redacted tonight? Then here's the hill. I think he or she is talking about Rising, which Rising also does some good stuff, but it's not gonna, as far as I can tell, as far as the clips I've seen, Rising is a slightly more palatable for the ruling elite kind of rebellion, kind of revolutionary talk. They're not really going to question capitalism much. They're not really going to reveal some of the stories that are like third rails, like covering the fraud about China's committing genocide, that kind of stuff. So I'm not saying they don't have good stuff. You could send me a clip right now where they're saying all kinds of good things. But you get the point. And I don't watch that much of it. So President Jesus is saying it's very anti-China. So thank you so much for the donation, Hearn Kip. I did not mention that all the donations are going to people who are struggling. That goes to basically mutual aid, basically a solidarity fund of our own creation. So if you do donate, that is where these funds go. If you want to become a member of my stuff, then that's at liberapay.com/LeeCamp. But LIBERAPAY.LeeCamp. .com/LeeCamp. But all these donations on the Super Chat, those all go to people who are struggling. And we talk more about that on the weekend live streams. Let's see if anybody else has some quick questions. I didn't even know this. Are Sagar and Crystal not on anymore? Someone said they got fired. I didn't realize that. Oh, okay. So Crystal and Sagar have a new channel, apparently. Maybe they'll be more free on that channel. But, and actually, I haven't, well, actually, I should find out the reality of that before I talk about it. So I'll wait. Thank you guys so much for coming to hang out. All right, well, I'm gonna wrap it up here. But there's a new. Oh, is he really? Chad said Ryan Grimm is now the host, or are you kidding? Ryan Grimm is the piece of shit from the Intercept who like his mission in life is to attack Movement for a People's Party. I mean, that's so pathetic. It's like there's like one, alternative to the Democrats, which is a, struggling and, hopefully it'll keep growing, but the struggling party, small, just getting off the ground, struggling party of like true progressives that don't take corporate money. And you're like, I'm going to fucking get you. Like, how fucked up do you have to be for that to be your life? It's just pathetic. Oh, Nick's saying Ryan Grimm is the host of Rising. Oh, that's pathetic. They're like, well, you know what it is? These people, they go to the Intercept and then they basically do, it's like a trial run for like mainstream media. One of them became an MSNBC host. Ryan Grimm was clearly auditioning over the past few months for like some DNC job, which now he's hosting Rising, which is The Hill. And The Hill is a big corporate entity. So, but all of his attacks against Movement for a People's Party, yeah, sorry. A, I've been on break, and B, I try not to watch other things that I don't respect that much. I respect some of what Rising did, but anyway, thank you guys so much for joining. And like I said, all the donations are going to people who are struggling. And there'll be a new Redacted tonight this week. There'll be a new Redacted VIP. It'll all be at LeeCamp.com. And yeah, that's what I got. Keep fighting.